Remain at their stations until further notice. Base under full lockdown.
I thought I was being too good to myself lately, so I went digging in the jank barrel for something to play. Area 51 is what glopped out. It's a first-person shooter set in a fictional analog of the secret military installation at Groom Lake. In the depths of the underground complex, a virus is raging loose, and it's up to Ethan Cole and his hazmat team to save some... Wait. Is that a gray? Illuminati?
The Illuminati.
The protagonist is voiced by David Duchovny? And it's buggy as hell to run and play? 1 second. Okay, who's gonna tell me why we didn't do this first? Mulder voices the protagonist! What do you mean budget can— Area 51 is a game with a bizarre history that I feel like I have to relay before even talking about the game itself. It was developed by Midway Austin of Midway Games and released in 2005. Area 51 had some groundswell before its release. It was boosted by a PC demo that I played as a kid. Another demo was included on the Mortal Kombat Deception disc. The game seems to have sold okay, but was given mixed reviews by game journalists at the time. Just gonna point out, I take their opinions with a grain of salt. Games journalists tend to be more representative of the marketing hype of video games rather than their actual quality. To make a long, complex legal story oversimplified, Midway took some loans, made some bad bets, and declared bankruptcy in the Great Recession. After selling off anything valuable to pay off debts and creditors, the company and its remaining assets were liquidated. So for a period of time, Area 51 was abandonware. Then, out of nowhere, in 2012, the US Air Force released 3 games onto the web as freeware, and Area 51 was one of them. I think they're trying to tell us something. The free version of the game is available to download on the web at a variety of places like this one. It has some problems that were inherent to the original release. Even with some patching, this game's a buggy mess. Cutscenes don't play, the jump malfunctions, preventing me from continuing on, and worst of all, there's terrible FOV. It's compressed horizontally and vertically. I get they were trying to save on resources, but don't crunch my FOV, just make the game look a little worse. Thankfully, there is a fan out there by the name of Andrew MD5 who created a version of the game known as Project Dreamland. It fixes the FOV and quite a few bugs I encountered in the free version. However, it does come with bugs of its own. Now look, I'm not trying to be out here shitting on the hard work of someone who isn't getting paid for what he does. That would make me an asshole. But I do feel compelled to at least share the 3 major bugs I came across in Project Dreamland that I feel had an effect on the overall experience. That way, you as a player can decide what version you would wish to try. Please keep in mind that this is reflective of my own experience, and some of these may not even occur on your own computer. First and foremost, I cannot get Project Dreamland to run through the included launcher. It gets stuck on verifying files forever, and when I try to launch the Area 51 exe in the files, it tells me to use the launcher. The workaround is to go into command prompt and change directories to where the Area 51 file is located on your computer. Then you have to type this command to get the game to run. Worked every time I used it. Second is the FOV sometimes resets itself to the old tiny FOV. It seems to be caused by in-game cutscenes and can sometimes be fixed by other in-game cutscenes. This problem was also a bit more prevalent in the first third of the game than the latter 2/3. Lastly is that while the in-game cutscenes all work, the scenes between the levels where Duchovny gives exposition is cold or broken. They tend to skip like a vinyl record and really hurt to listen to. So I ended up pretty much skipping all of them once I confirmed that they were all busted. I personally found the Project Dreamland version of the game to be preferable despite these problems. I would even recommend it over the freeware version. Project Dreamland is incredibly stable, and I only had 1 crash while playing, and no additional bugs that weren't already inherent to the game. Looking at the visuals for Area 51, it's a blast from the past. This was AA if not AAA for the time. It looks great without also being super expensive to render. The animations are generally smooth with no inherent jankiness, for the most part. There's no dynamic lighting in the game, but it does a very good job at faking it. In particular with this fan shadow. If not for my flashlight being on the body, I would have never noticed the shadow is unnatural and is actually moving texture. Catching these solutions to technical problems is why I love playing older video games. Because in 2005, dynamic lighting would have caused most computers to light on fire. A few environmental objects even have some physics to them, but you really can't make them leave the room that they spawn in. I'm a big fan of the art direction of Area 51 in general. It's low poly but crisp. The environments are especially varied and range from a standard military base to a secret futuristic lab to freaking alien tech. The developers leaned heavily into old conspiracy theories to bring Area 51 to life. The future tech especially looks well done. I sometimes found myself stopping to look and try and figure out what some of these things do. I'm especially appreciative of these low-poly anti-grav things. There isn't a ton of variety in character and enemy models, but the level of detail often makes up for it. There were only a couple of times where I noticed the game outright copying prior rooms, but even these copies would sometimes have twists to them. Area 51's sound is a bit of a letdown if I'm being honest. The visual presentation raised my expectations a bit. Some of the music is alright, but it's fairly generic rock or alien-y electronic. Nothing really sticks out to me. It does at least help set the mood. I'm not really a fan of most of the weapon sounds. I feel like they generally lack punch, the shotgun especially. For a weapon that can take down enemies in a single shot, it does not sound like it. The voice acting work stands out due to the nature of the soundscape. There are some big names in this game. David Duchovny is doing his best Sad Mulder impression for Cole during the cutscenes.
It was supposed to be a routine mission. We go in, identify the biohazard, clean, and get out.
But during the game, Cole is mostly a silent protagonist because I guess Duchovny's time was expensive. Marilyn Manson continually talks to me through dead bodies.
Our enemy hides with the machinery of deception. It's this deceit that might draw our last breath. The vision of the infected can help you see things unseen.
It's starting to happen to me out of game. I'm worried. And some familiar faces like Steve Blum and Nolan North. As far as the gameplay goes, I have to say it's a solid FPS. It's not a Halo killer by any means, but it plays well. Better than some of the shit I've played. Your movement speed is just fast enough to make combat feel somewhat frantic. The mouse look is a bit jagged on the models, but it functions well in game. The enemy AI is a bit brain dead by modern comparison, but it's still fairly impressive. Human enemies actually try to use cover at times. There's a lean mechanic which actually gives the shooting a bit more of a tactical feel. It's just a tad goofy that you can walk around while leaning. What's interesting to me is that Area 51 has a health bar system. You use these little green needles to regain health. I was honestly expecting a recovering health system and was pleasantly surprised by this. I'm a sucker for a health bar. In addition to shooting, there's a melee attack. It's fairly low damage, and I only used it rarely to test it out. Most of the gameplay involves going from point A to point B and overcoming obstacles by flipping switches or finding keys to doors. Along with that, there are a few turret sections and a few platforming skill challenges. There are only 6 weapons, but each is unique. The first 4 are human weapons. The pistol is a good backup and was useful for the entire game, even if I didn't actively use it all the time. The SMP was alright. It's a submachine gun and the second gun that you obtain. It doesn't really stun enemies, but it did enough damage to make it my mainstay through a lot of the game. The shotgun is pretty great. It actually has some range and can take down pretty much anything with 1 or 2 shots. The shotgun even has that special kind of jank where the character is able to shove 2 rounds in at a time. I'll take this moment to point out that Area 51 has dual wielding because it existed in the shadow of Halo 2. The dual wielding is available only for the SMP and the shotgun. Supposedly the dual wielding decreases accuracy, but I can't hear it over the burp. It makes me feel like I'm in some kind of sci-fi John Woo movie, and I dig it. The sniper rifle is a bit lackluster. Its starting animation is very long, and its damage is lower than I would have hoped. It takes 2 shots to the chest to kill any enemy, though headshots are 1 shot. When you zoom in, you also have to go through both levels of zoom to get out, and the animation is kinda slow. It's probably my least favorite weapon on the roster. Where things get interesting is with the alien weapons. The BBG is among my favorite weapons I've seen in video games. The big bad gun fires in 3-round bursts and can kill most targets in 1 volley. These rounds will stick to enemies and explode or will bounce off a surface, potentially opening up trick shots. Possibly the best part of the gun is the fact that the ammo recharges over time, This became my weapon of choice upon picking one up. I love this big beautiful gun and lament over the lack of more guns like it. Lastly is the game's BFG, the Mason Cannon. It shoots out a purpley pink ball that spits lightning, damaging most things around it. Ammo is particularly scarce, so I only used it a few times. I'm a bit underwhelmed by it if I'm being honest. The Mason Cannon doesn't do as much damage as I would have expected. It's like breaking out a tiny rocket launcher that shoots even smaller missiles. Don't you start, Tin Man. Ethan also has a scanner that lets you investigate things in the environment. It looks incredibly futuristic and even has a small screen that mirrors your perspective. I think it's one of the more unique parts of the game, especially for its time. You can scan the air and see its chemical makeup, or scan your allies to learn their names and blood types. The main purpose, though, is to scan secrets. These are mostly various files and datapads, but sometimes include bodies and various computer reports as well. All of this information is stored in the databank on the main campaign screen, along with a series of secret videos by Mr. White and Dr. Cray that hold Area 51's deeper lore. More on that later. Sharks with laser beams? In addition to weaponry, main character Ethan Cole gets infected by the alien virus about a quarter of the way through the game. But he is special and is only mutated instead of being truly infected. Your budget alien-based X-Men powers include the ability to hit things really hard, shoot heat-seeking parasites that restore your health, and shoot a contagion that will make enemies fight their friends. All of these powers and the mutant state itself cost energy in the form of mutagen. It's tracked in this bar above your health bar. Mutagen is regained either by killing enemies, getting it from orange vials, or by absorbing it from these decaying mutant bodies. These powers even have an in-game explanation. They're a development of a more advanced form of the virus that merges with its host. I use the mode frequently, mostly for the homing parasites, which saved me on more than one occasion. The enemy variety is just a tad limited. Area 51 begins by throwing soldiers and scientists infected by the alien virus at you. These are melee enemies for the most part, and they're fairly simple to beat. Their AI essentially tells them to beeline towards the nearest bad man. This is followed by the Illuminati soldiers, whom act like your average mid-2000s human enemies. Many are hit-scanning chucklefucks who present an actual challenge. Eventually they evolve into cloaking dirtbags with the BBG, which can cause total mayhem visually. But it does add that extra sense of tension that wasn't there otherwise. Miscellaneous alien amoebas float around that will try to absorb you, get angry, and split because you don't want to assimilate, bro. Mites are the last of the common enemies. Apparently these things are ticks infected with the virus that escaped containment and became a nuisance in the secret lab. Mites and amoebas are more of a secondary enemy than main threats, despite what the game may think sometimes. While you see the infected at various stages throughout, they're nowhere near as prevalent as during the beginning of the game. For the back 2/3, you're mostly fighting against Illuminati soldiers in different but often cramped environments. I say often, but the areas do open up quite a bit in the last third. There are actually two types of bosses, as it were, in Area 51. First, you have the big chung guy known as the Theta types. They're big, tanky, and fairly easy to kill. Just circle strafe the Thetas and you'll win. Greys are the stereotypical little gray aliens whom serve as the main antagonists of this game. For now, you just need to know that these guys are the devil. They are archviles from Doom 2 and Eternal, but with a goddamn shield that soaks up all your damage. They summon Illuminati troops with a ridiculous frequency. Thankfully, they don't attack you and instead absorb a metric ton of damage. My best bet was to keep throwing grenades and lead at them. Ah crap, I forgot about the grenades. There are two types. Normal frag grenades and these crazy looking ones that either create a mini black hole or a ball of plasma. I like the second ones because they tend to home in on enemies. As far as criticism for the gameplay, well, the checkpoint system is abysmal. There's often only 2 to 3 checkpoints in a level with no quick save feature. Meaning you can fight a boss, die, and have to fight through the level to get to them again. Pretty much every boss is a bit of a joke. The hard difficulty is locked behind completing the game once, and medium is fairly easy at points. Of course, there are random spikes in difficulty, case in point when you meet the Illuminati soldiers for the first time. Up until then, you have been fighting melee enemies or incredibly inaccurate ranged enemies. The final boss is a complete letdown and joke. Like, I didn't realize it was the final boss until I was booted back to the main menu. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty middling shooter. Area 51 manages to keep my attention very well for the first 2/3, but by the last third it begins to drag. The game has completely shown its hand at that point. Thankfully it only took me about 4.5 hours to beat the game, but that's still an hour and change where the game began to feel pretty underwhelming. Which now brings us to the story. Area 51's story is a tad bit mental. It goes from like 0 to 2000 in a few seconds. What starts as an attempt to provide backup to a hazmat team ends up becoming a journey to save all of humanity from possible extinction. Without spoiling anything more, this game might be worth it alone for the weirdo story and the lore that is developed by the collectibles in-game. Most of the characters are pretty forgettable, but the events themselves are interesting enough to me. If you want to avoid spoilers, go here. Okay, they're missing out here because holy shit, aliens killed JFK. The literal in-universe explanation is that the Greys dreamed of it and it manifested itself into reality. Like, what the actual fuck? I want some of the drugs that the writers were clearly on. There's a ton of ridiculous detail hidden amongst the database. Like how the Illuminati assassinated Dr. Cray's son right in front of him for the maximum emotional response. Or any of the insane ramblings of Mr. White on video. But that's deeper lore and I'm getting ahead of myself. Area 51 is the story of Ethan Cole, a member of Hazmat Team Bravo. They're sent into Area 51 to retrieve their fellow Hazmat team after an outbreak in the underground facility that has gone awry. It becomes clear quickly that things are out of control with hyper-aggressive alien crackheads causing havoc. You fight your way through the underground complex, losing your team, the other Hazmat team, and becoming infected with the virus in the process. In the lower depths of the labs, you're contacted by the Area 51 version of Professor X. Dr. Cray tells you there's a cure, but you have to find him. Cue multiple levels of being Cray's errand boy. Eventually, you meet up with him in his sick bunker. Professor X tries to fix you, but is only able to give you a half fix without voiding warranty. Marilyn Manson then starts talking to you through bodies, telling you he's more than willing to void warranty to properly repair something. You go through the depths of futuristic tech and government secrets to eventually find the truth. That Marilyn Manson is the Grey who landed at Roswell in '47 and has been let loose by the government in accordance to a plan to assimilate humanity into our alien overlords. Only in Area 51 the game, humanity has made the alien virus using Marilyn Manson and are gonna do the assimilation that way. Eminem gives you the antidote made of his blood, gives you some cryptic prophecy, and sends you on your way. You then fight the actual Greys to get to what I guess is their spaceship. Inside, you fight the final boss, which is this giant spinning core of death? Maybe some kind of miniature star? It managed to kill me once. You run to escape, but make sure you don't run too fast or the checkpoint system will get you. That's actually a surprisingly sound device for this game. Upon escaping, you see a super vortex emitting from Area 51. Cole just looks tired of this shit. Cole walks away, lamenting how he has failed his mission and succeeded at saving greater humanity. It even gives you a bit of a sequel bait with this truck carrying alien tech from the beginning of the game. I kinda totally forgot about the truck until I saw it again, if I'm being honest. But spoilers, this game got no sequel. Well, not really. More of a spiritual successor. In all, I think I'm more fascinated by Area 51 than anything else. It's a mediocre shooter with an absolute bonkers story. Area 51 has one of my new favorite guns in all first-person shooters that I've played. But it takes more effort to figure out how to run Area 51 than it does to play. I think because of that, this game will continue to languish in obscurity, but those who do want to give it a try may scratch a strange nostalgic itch like I did, because the truth is out there, and it's pretty janky. Thanks for watching.
Hi, you.
Jesus, mother.